Now, right across Australia, Chris Smith filling in for Alan Jones.
G'day and good morning. Welcome to the Alan Jones Breakfast Program. Great to have your company as we jump on the news of the day and hear what you have to say as well on the open line. We'll do that in about 30 minutes from now. And it's weather that has been elevated on the news rundown everywhere because the country is in the grip of a heat wave. And that is fairly serious, especially for those people who are doing it tough with power bills and refuse to take on the heat in terms of air conditioning and fans. We'll get to that a little bit later. Let's get a snapshot of what's happened in the past 24 hours. Firstly, no rain at all in New South Wales over the past 24. A different story in Queensland, though. Burketown, right up north, received 29 millimetres. Mornington Island, 19. Normanton, 15. And then further south, Ayr received 12. And Point Lookout at North Stradbroke Island received 22 millimetres. Now, the top temp in New South Wales, 41 at Tibooburra. You'd hate to be sitting in Tibooburra trying to get cool, wouldn't you? I think that'd only be one place to be. 41 there, the low 5 at Thredbo, away from the snowies. It was 11 at Glen Innes. Now, the top in Queensland, 43 at Birdsville, of course, and the low 14 at Gatton. So that's for the past 24 hours, which brings us to today, Wednesday, December 13, 2017. Now, the sun rose in Sydney at 5:38. It's up, clear skies, and it rises in Brisbane in around about 5 minutes' time, 4:46. A mainly dry and hot day right around the country. Now, a shower or two and a possible storm in Darwin. Hot and partly cloudy in Hobart. For Perth and Canberra, mostly sunny. Perth have just been through some very hot days. A late cool change after a top of 37 in Melbourne. If you're travelling there, heading to the airport at the moment to go to Melbourne, make sure you're aware of that. 37 there, but a cool change after that. And a late change after 38 degrees in Adelaide. Hotter still. Now for Brisbane, a mostly sunny day with a top of 30 degrees, quite manageable. And that will continue through until Sunday, those mostly sunny conditions right through until the start of next week. Now, for Sydney today, a hot, sunny, but windy day as well. Nor'easterly winds between 25 and 40 kilometres an hour. That's in the middle of the day. Now, a top temperature of 30 degrees in the city, which is manageable, but 39 in the west, so that's hot. For tomorrow, worse still. Top temperature of 35 in the city and 41 in the western suburbs of Sydney. A bit cooler on Friday, then a shower or two on both Saturday and Sunday, which I know we'll welcome. So there you have it. That's what's ahead of us, and we'll cover that in a little bit more detail later this morning. But news-wise, it's going, but not quite yet gone for Shanghai Sam Dastyari. The Labor senator has finally announced he's quitting politics over his links with China. But the federal government says he needs to go now and not receive another cent in salary from the Australian people. Now, the government also claims his departure has been stage managed as a backstop for former New South Wales Premier Kristina Keneally in case she doesn't win Saturday's Bennelong by-election. Now, after weeks of mounting pressure, Senator Dastyari yesterday morning announced he was getting out of politics. He said, after much reflection, I've decided that the best service I can render to the Federal Parliamentary Labor Party is to not return to the Senate in 2018. No mention of his commitments or responsibilities, more to the point, to the Parliament and to the people of Australia, but to the Labor Party. He went on, I've been guided by my Labor values, which tells me that I should leave if my ongoing presence detracts from the pursuit of Labor's mission. It's evident to me we are at that point. So I will spare the party any further distraction. He said, I've always acted with integrity and I remain a loyal, patriotic Australian. Now, it's more than a year since the first claims about him surfaced. You'll remember it was revealed he let the Sydney-based Top Education Institute cover a $1,670 blowout in his travel expenses. They covered him for that. Top Education just happens to be owned by Chinese billionaire Huang Xiangmo, who has links to the Chinese government, of course. The senator said in August last year that on reflection, he should have paid the bill himself, really, and stepped down from Labor's front bench. Then last month, it was reported the senator warned Mr. Huang that his phone was probably being tapped by US agencies. The warning came in a secret face-to-face meeting between the pair last October, at about the same time that he knew that ASIO was on his case. Not Sam's case, but Mr. Huang's case. Then reports emerged about comments he made at a Chinese media conference about the South China Sea, comments that went against ALP policy, and then just the other day we learned Shanghai Sam tried to pressure colleague Tanya Plibersek not to meet a Chinese political activist during a visit to Hong Kong. Can I just say this? Sam Dastyari still has questions to answer, but he refuses to be interviewed. This business about standing at a podium and saying, I'm gone, thank you, this is my statement, bye. He walks away a gutless man and a gutless politician to me. Now, it's unclear when the senator will leave politics. His comment that he'll not return to the Senate in 2018 means, well, he'll be a senator until the end of 2017. So he'll be paid for more than 6 weeks on a senator's salary, because he's entitled to that pay until the resignation is official. Well, Foreign Minister Julie Bishop was having none of that. She says he needs to go now. And Finance Minister Matthias Cormann says he should have gone weeks ago. He says the timing of this is clearly driven by Bill Shorten's perception of Labor's political interest. Now, Shorten, meanwhile, said, I won't go into all my discussions, but for the record, ultimately this was his decision, and I support and commend his decision. Mr. Shorten also failed to rule out Christina Keneally taking the vacant Senate spot. That is a given. If she doesn't win Bennelong on Saturday, that is a given. He would only say, I'm ruling in that we will do everything we can to win. He could have ruled it out, but of course he won't. He needs the heavy hitters in the Senate to start getting things his way. Julie Bishop says Mr. Shorten should reveal what discussions he's had with Miss Keneally about getting her to fill the Senate spot if she doesn't win on Saturday. That is a minor point in all of this. That is a minor point. Julie Bishop says the people of Bennelong deserve better than a candidate who's just shopping around looking for a seat. Christina Keneally has every right, if she wants to get into politics and fails in Bennelong, to take up this vacant Senate seat. That's fine. But for Sam Dastyari, how about standing and being courageous and answering the questions that Australians want answered? As I say, gutless. 13 minutes to 6, 13 to 5 in Queensland. 10 minutes away from news, a few minutes away from talking sport. Now, away from Shanghai Sam, we'll get back to him. We won't let him go, but away from him for a second. And there's talk of confidential financial modelling for the New South Wales government that said to destroy claims that refurbishing Sydney's Olympic Stadium would be a better financial option than demolishing and rebuilding them. Now, the Telegraph reports today the modelling shows that remodelling or refurbishing ANZ Stadium would have cost $1.385 billion. That compares with the $1.253 billion cost of rebuilding, knocking down and rebuilding. It's also reported the government considered a so-called cut price option that would have cost $944.5 million and only seen the modelling of the lower bowl and the corporate suites in that ANZ Stadium. Now, Sports Minister Stuart Ayres says reconfiguring the lower half of the stadium was not acceptable to the hirers. Now, that includes the NRL and the ARU, and the government believes it would not have generated a world-class rectangular stadium. Look, he's right about ANZ. I've just got some doubts about bulldozing Allianz as well, but Stuart Ayres makes a very good point. It's always cheaper. Like your home, you can bulldoze and build much more cheaply than having to refurbish. Now, there's some massive news from the corporate world with Sir Frank Lowy announcing he's selling his global Westfield shopping centre empire. Now, the buyer is European giant Unibail Rodamco. And the price tag, get this, almost $33 billion. Now, Sir Frank, whose knighthood ceremony took place at Windsor Castle a few days ago, he was appointed a Knight Bachelor by the Queen in the June birthday honours list for his contribution to the British economy, said, why now? Why now? Because it is appropriate to do it now. The Lowy family will retain what's described as a significant holding in the business. What a rags to riches story that is, the Lowy family. Now, there's talk of a massive overhaul of the reward system in New South Wales. The Telegraph reports the old $250,000 cap for information that solves outstanding crimes will be removed, with amounts of up to $1 million to be offered to help solve the most horrific cold cases of missing children, murder and terrorism. Police say the reward system hasn't been reviewed in a long, long time. Queensland has a new opposition leader and the first female leader of the Liberal National Party. Deb Frecklington replaces Tim Nichols in the wake of the party's loss, and she says it's game on. And high school students have done quite poorly in a national civics and citizenship test, with thousands of them ignorant of key aspects of Australia's system of government. Only 38% of the nation's Year 10 students achieved a proficient standard in the test, a result described by Federal Education Minister Simon Birmingham as woeful and of serious concern. In New South Wales, the benchmark for the multiple choice assessment was reached by 43% of Year 10 students, down from 61 in 2010. But results for Year 6 students were stable, with 55% nationally achieving or exceeding proficiency. Queensland Year 6 and Year 10 students were outperformed by all other states except for Tasmania and the Northern Territory. That is a worry. And we'll talk about this when I open the phone lines in about 15 minutes from now. 6.5 to 6, 6.5 to 5 in Queensland. Chris Smith for Alan Jones.
And now a sports update for Swan Security. New wireless smart security cameras out now.
5 minutes to news time. James Willis is here, and he didn't see what I saw yesterday. He wasn't in the company of star power like I was.
So jealous, Smithy.
I know you are.
So you did a massive interview yesterday.
Yeah.
One of the biggest you've done.
Yeah.
With 3 stars, some of the biggest names in Australian TV.
Rada Mitchell, Asher Keddy, and the one and only Kylie Minogue.
Wow.
Yeah.
Kylie Minogue, who I think
Looks
was
great.
involved in the highest rated Neighbours episode of all time when she got married.
Yeah.
I mean, that's only a small part of her career,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
still a big deal.
She's an international star. And there they were, the
Highest-selling
three of them.
Australian artist of all time.
Yeah,
as well.
and they star in this movie, Swinging Safari. We've done the interview, and we'll replay it on the program tomorrow. So for
good.
people who want to hear. And they are giving girls, you know what I mean? Really, really nice.
And very generous with their time, and you could have
I got a photo.
spoken to them all day. A photo as well.
Photo.
That's fantastic.
We had a
very,
chat.
very jealous you got to do that.
We had a chat about Christmas. You know, just great stuff. What do you hear? Sport, right.
Sport, yeah, that's
Okay,
what
let's
we're
talk
looking
sport.
at.
Sorry, I'm just a little bit carried away
No,
by
that's
all of
okay.
that. Jeff Horn putting his WBO World Welterweight title on the line tonight.
Yes, this is at the Brisbane Convention and Entertainment Centre. Only there'll be about 6,500 people there for this tonight. But he takes on Britain's Gary Corcoran. It's a huge fight. It's a springboard fight for Jeff Horn, because basically, if he wins tonight, next year he's going to fight 2 or 3 of the top fighters in the world for his weight division. He's just got to get through and win this fight tonight against Gary Corcoran. This was to be the rematch of the Manny Pacquiao fight back in July. Pacquiao obviously has some other issues, so he couldn't get there. But Horn made weight yesterday by 16 grams. He lost 4 kilos in 24 hours to make the weight. And if he wins, then he's going to be on a path to American fighters, British fighters everywhere.
Oh, different stratosphere. Where does Corcoran stand on the peggings? Like, is he halfway down the 10 or...
Yeah, look, I think he's a very, very tough fighter. He's only had 1 loss from about 19 fights so far.
Okay.
And these two are both bulldogs. They'll both come forward. It'll be bruising. If it goes 12 rounds, it's going to be really tough. And what about the fact Jeff Horn has his heavily pregnant wife in his corner tonight for the fight, sitting next to her, an obstetrician who's, might have a busy night or may have a great night. He gets to watch a fight either way, and an ambulance waiting out the front in the event that she goes into labour.
All on international television. I don't want to even think about what might happen. Dennis Lilly has weighed into what he thinks about the Australian bowling lineup.
Yeah, and he says, look, he's had a fair bit to do with Pat Cummins' revival as a fast bowler, but he says this is one of the best attacks that we've ever seen. The likes of Hazelwood, Stark, Cummins, Nathan Lyon, who's the highest wicket taker in the world for 2017, and it looks like Peter Hanscombe will be axed for that test match starting tomorrow. Mitchell Marsh to return as the all-rounder, largely because he can bowl if required, and the whacker, we probably need another fast bowler. So brother Sean will bat at number 5, Mitchell Stark at number 6. Incidentally, this is the last ever test at the whacker, because Perth's new $1 billion stadium...
Mitchell Marsh at number 6.
What did I say?
Mitchell Stark.
Sorry, yeah, Mitchell Marsh.
Mitchell Stark needs to start hitting runs, but anyway, that's a separate
Well, he either
story.
hits a 6 or he gets out, doesn't he, Mitchell Stark? But Perth's new $1 billion stadium will host matches from next year. Now, look, with that
The
in mind...
last at the whacker, right?
That's right. Now, some of the great moments at the whacker, 1993, Curtly Ambrose took 7 wickets in 32 balls for just 1 run against Australia.
I'd forgotten
Cleaned us
about
up.
that.
Doug Walters hit a 6 to bring up a century in a session.
Off Bob Willis.
Before stumps against England in December 1974. And what about this? 1979, Dennis Lilly went to stumps on day 1 with a wooden bat. came out the next day with an aluminium bat, which was a sponsor. One of his friends owned the company or something. Hit one ball, and England complained, so he threw the bat into the grandstand and it started again.
And the bat sold like hotcakes after that because it was right around the world.
But can you imagine the vibrations through the... I mean, there's no way you could use an aluminium bat.
No, it's sad. I've been to the WACA and seen a test match. I saw Australia versus South Africa. I was working for a current affair at the time. It was a great atmosphere, fantastic. But when the doctor comes in, you can see why the game changes so much because that wind just blows straight across the pitch. Yeah,
it's sad. And Robert Craddock makes a really good point today. You can build these new stadiums, but they don't have the character of the old grounds like the WACA. 20,000 people when it was at capacity with the sun. So it'll be sad, but we get one more game starting tomorrow.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, James.
Chris Smith filling in for Alan Jones. Thanks to Vodafone. Want a no-locking contract? See vodafone.com.au/plans. T's and C's apply.
Yari, can I just say, and I'll repeat what I said in the last half hour, he walks away from Parliament a gutless man. Too gutless to be interviewed yesterday after his statement, and too gutless to apologise to the Australian public. Where was the apology? Where was the explanation about why he said to Wang Xiangmo, excuse me, hey, let's talk outside, leave our phones inside because our phones are being tapped by US agencies? Where's the explanation about why he said that to him and why he wanted to get in the way of an ASIO pursuit of Huang Xiangmo? He won't answer any of that. Well, some of us who will follow Sam Dastyari closely won't forget. And one day he'll be cornered. And I wonder whether he'll be prepared to have the guts to answer it. I doubt it. Or will he continue to be a gutless politician exiting, well, apparently at the end of 2017 and still taking money off us for 6 weeks. Outrageous. Now, we started the week on the open line with a Queensland listener who called in. She never turns her lights on, she told us. She navigates through the night using a torch. I can only hope that with all of this hot weather about today and tomorrow, our pensioners don't put themselves in danger by keeping the air conditioning and or the fans hot. It'll be something like 41, maybe even 42, 43 in the west tomorrow. Very hot today as well, high 30s. Western Australia and South Australia have already been sweating it out. It's the turn of Melbourne and Adelaide today, 37 plus. And then New South Wales tomorrow. But boy, oh boy, please tell me I don't have listeners who are in this boat who can't afford the power bill and on days like tomorrow or today will simply sweat it out, refusing to turn on the air conditioning or fans. Are you in that boat? Tell me about it. 131873 is the telephone number. And more holes in our education system. Today we discover that secondary students' reading skills have failed to progress over the past decade. I remember being here filling in for Alan when he had that back surgery this time last year. It was late November. We had no less than 3 separate reports exposing how crook educational scores were in this country for 15 years. Remember that? And we performed so poorly by comparison with other international systems. Well, our education system has been again proved 12 months later, to have not budged. This literacy and numeracy report, which will be released today, reveals that gains by Indigenous students and those from non-English speaking backgrounds have outpaced those of the broader student population. Years 7 and 9 scores have flatlined, adding to concerns about the state of Australia's education system. Look, we've got to get the teaching methods right. We've got to work out where the good results are, what teaching methods they employ, work out where the bad results are, work out what teaching methods they employ, and gravitate to the right methods, and gravitate to getting our teachers better tuned to teach. That's the key. All the literature says that is the key. Get the teachers up to scratch, get the teaching methods right. 131873 is the telephone number. Stephanie, good morning.
Well, the despicable lower-than-pond life, which means slimy and smelly, and evil Dastyari is finally going. This is the man who told us yesterday he is a deeply loyal Australian. I can tell you, Chris, there are millions of deeply loyal Australians who regard him as totally and utterly treacherous. He puts the benefits of a communist country, China, in front of a place he calls his own.
Exactly.
I don't regard him as an Australian in any way, shape or form for what he's done. And that sneaky, tricky Spiv Shorten is no better. The Labor Party is no better. It has protected this man up to the wire. And only when they think Bennelong might have a chance, might get Keneally into federal politics, which is really where we'd like her. So Dastyari stands up there yesterday telling us he's doing it for the good of the party. Oh, to hell with the country. But that, Chris, is absolutely at the base of what is wrong with this country today. That
if he was a loyal, patriotic Australian, he would have answered questions at that press conference yesterday about why he did what he did. I would totally agree with that. The issue of loyalty, which, the politicians seem to throw it around a bit here, they're not only un-Australian, these people are now anti-Australian. And just a quick word on the subject of loyalty to this country, my country. When there are people over in Middle Eastern countries where Dastyari hailed from, and they are fighting against me and mine, I don't want you, Julie Bishop, or you, Malcolm Turnbull, allowing any one of those people back into my country. Are we sick to death, in the main, Chris, of politicians who are like human leeches on the Australian taxpayer? Absolutely living the life of Riley. They could care less about this country. They are there for the 3 or 4 year increment until the next election. Yep.
That is up to hell with everyone else. And you just quickly mentioned about education. We've got to get better education. We will only get that when we get a decent Australian government who can then go through all the books and get rid of the left-wing, politically correct rubbish, the Marxism that is now everywhere you turn, and no government's got the guts to do it.
Correct, and that's a barrier to the scores that we seem unable to get nowadays. Good point. Hey, Stephanie, I've never given you a prize on this program, but I'd like to give you a Sony Christmas CD pack, because quite often, either on Alan's program, mine or others, you are first to the punch, and you say it so superbly, and I get so much feedback from other listeners, and you add to our programs, and we appreciate that. Can I get you a Sony Christmas CD pack, Stephanie?
My goodness, all those words so early in the morning. That's extremely kind of you to say such lovely things.
It's true.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That would be lovely.
All right. Barbara Streisand, the music of Elvis, and also Farnham and Olivia Newton-John. Thank you. Have a great Christmas, Stephanie. And we'll hear from you again. Stay right there, and we'll get that address for you. 131873. Annette, hi.
I'm the same as Pauline, who rang you yesterday morning with the torch and electricity. I've now started turning things off at the meter box.
Okay, but Annette, we are reaching, not necessarily where you are, Annette, but you know how hot it is. You're in Queensland.
Yes.
But on very, very hot days, on heat wave days, you can't let yourself get into any dangerous health situation. You know that, don't you?
I do. I'm alone. I'm a pensioner. And I don't have the best of health. Yeah. But what I do to keep cool is a cold shower and use the damp towel. Yeah. The only problem I have is my terrace faces the street, so people can see me sitting in a towel.
Right.
However, that's not as important to me now as it would have been years ago.
Yeah, I understand all of that, but you can also put ice in your freezer too, Annette, and use that ice to keep cool.
Yes.
Please don't let yourself get into any dangerous situation, though, during those very hot days that you will experience, all right?
I'll take that on board.
Thank you, Annette. Thank you very much. I understand what Annette goes through and others. We've been through this on the open line all week. Paul, hi.
Hey, Chris.
G'day.
When I was working the domestic air conditioning game, you would have old people that wouldn't turn their air conditioners on except for those very few extreme days, and because the AC sees up due to the fact that they don't run them because the electricity costs too much. Yeah. I've seen it in the winter time where they don't run the air conditioners, and when they forget how to use the air conditioner because they haven't had it on for so long, they're there with blankets on, and then when you finally readjust it and get it going for them, they say, "Oh, turn the air conditioner off, love. I can't afford it. The electricity's expensive," and they just put a blanket over them, or their grandchildren or their children buy them a brand new air conditioner. You install the air conditioner, so the grandchildren have paid for it, or their children have paid for this air conditioner because they're afraid their loved one's going to boil to death or freeze to death. And then when you've got it going, you commissioned it, they immediately grab the remote and turn it off and tell you, "Oh, don't leave it on, love. The electricity's expensive."
Yeah.
And this is the first world. This is the country that these people have worked to build, to turn into this prosperous nation. It's been turned into a socialist, wealth-spreading dump. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the way how I'm punished for having electricity, and I'm punished for being successful. I'm sick of it by a government who thinks that they can gouge me at every dollar that I've earned, and that they can do this to people. Even I had to keep on turning my grandparents' air conditioner on every time I go to their house. They would be freezing cold and have to turn it on.
You have stated that so superbly. We've all had a gutful of this. We've all had a gutful that we have the oldest senior members of our community forced into a corner over their power bills and putting their own lives in danger because politicians don't understand the seriousness of this stuff.
No, but politicians have got heaps of money to throw at kids. Everything's all about the kids. We always hear, think of the kids. What have the kids done? The kids don't work. The kids haven't built this country. They're just starting out. What about the elderly people who get the age pension? The age pension is absolutely nothing compared to the other generous welfare scams out there like single-parent pension. Oh, the amount of single parents, people who breed from the age of 16 onwards, don't wear a wedding ring, and somehow they're entitled to free cash until the child is 18. That annoys me that I get up every morning,
you're not alone.
Sydney commute, and I've got to pay my taxes to go to those lazy bludgers. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. Yeah,
I'm with you. Paul, you've got a Sony Christmas CD pack, superbly stated, and hopefully people will get the message with listeners like you getting up and saying it like it is. Thank you very much for your call.
No worries, Chris.
Stay there. Don't go anywhere. Stay there. He got it off his chest in a very emotional way, but he's right. What sort of a country do we have where the Annettes of the world and others use torches to get around at night, and on really hot days, 40-degree plus, they refuse to turn on their air conditioner because they're petrified of the bill that comes in the letterbox in a month's time? It's a disgrace. We overuse the word disgrace. We overuse the word outrage. But it is both of that. 22 minutes after 6, 22 minutes after 5 in Queensland. 26 minutes after 6, 26 minutes after 5. Now, Steve Pearce has just phoned through from the Motorcycle Council of New South Wales. What can I do for you, Steve?
Yeah, Chris, good morning. How are you?
Very well.
Listen, thanks for taking my call, mate. We need some help. One of our clubs on Christmas Day goes around the hospices in around the inner city area, and they give away, sets of toiletries to people who are in hospital and who need a bit of help, and we're short toiletries for men.
So, like toiletry packs for men.
Yeah, just simple things like razors, toothpaste, talcum powder, aftershave, deodorant, that sort of thing.
So the kind of thing you'd get when you jump on a plane in business, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that sort of stuff. Little travel packs, and we put them together and we wrap them up and we give them away on Christmas morning.
Great.
But we're really short. We're short about 200 packs, mate. So if anybody can help, I'd really appreciate a phone call.
Yeah, if anyone is in that sector and you put together toiletry packs for men and you may be able to assist, or one of the airlines, maybe one of the executives from one of the major airlines could contribute as well. Just 200 toiletry packs for men, which will be delivered to hospices around Sydney. Great idea. Steve, stay with us. You never know the power of the open line. We might be able to help. If we don't, I'll put another call out later when I open the lines again, Steve.
Well, look, thanks, Chris. And look, can I just say, I just wanted to wish all of your listeners and you and Susie a great, safe Christmas and a happy New Year, and look out for motorcycles while you're out there.
Yes, very kind and very good words to end with. Thank you, mate. Much appreciated. And Merry Christmas to you and the family too.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah. So toiletry packs. That shouldn't be too hard, should it? we've had bigger challenges on various programs on this radio station to jump over. We can do that. 200 toiletry packs for men. Maybe one of the airlines. Can you do it? Or someone who might put this stuff together in a factory somewhere who could contribute 200 toiletry packs. Give us a call on 131 873. Hi, Shane.
Hi, Chris.
G'day.
I just wanted to congratulate Paul on his passion and saying it like it is.
Yeah.
I feel exactly the same, and I'm sure that there's many, many people out there that feel the same. We're just getting done over, left, right and centre.
Done over, and we lay down and we cop it, don't we, Shane?
Yeah.
Well, we're not going to cop it anymore.
It's just time that we stood up and kicked these bastards out.
Yeah. Shane, well put. Thank you, mate. He'll appreciate that support. Ed, hi.
Yeah, good morning, Chris.
Hi.
Exactly. And I heard a comment by one of those avarice parasites the other day saying that the closing of Liddell is a corporate decision because they're owned by AGL or whoever. Well, listen, mate, they were owned by us before you guys sold them out.
Yeah.
And the only reason that those power plants are in a state of disrepair is because consecutive governments didn't do any maintenance on them.
Yeah.
Those power stations, Liddell, Eraring, all of those were built by Commonwealth Engineering out of this state.
Yeah. If we have blackouts any time over the Christmas period, and we won't forget this, if it happens any time in 2018, we will front up and centre put AGL on top of our list as black banned from being part of our community, because we won't cop blackouts, Ed.
Oh, Chris, they won't care.
Yeah, I know, but we're going to do it. Ed, stay there. I've got a Sony Christmas CD pack for you. Thank you very much for calling.
Chris Smith filling in for Alan Jones. Thanks to Vodafone. Want a no locking contract? See vodafone.com.au/plans. T's and C's apply.
So good to have you with us, and so much happening. We'll get to some of the news of this day, the 13th of December 2017, in just a second, but let us to the editor, Alan Terry from Collaroy Plateau in Sydney. I lived in London for 3 years in the early 1970s, and never did I see snow like this falling at the moment. In fact, I recall in 1975 there was no snow in London at all. I had to travel to Buckinghamshire on April the 1st to see a slight covering. It must be global cooling, concludes Alan. John Clark from Burradoo in the Southern Highlands of New South Wales. Doesn't Malcolm Turnbull realise his happy clapping at the marriage equality result turned another 100,000 voters towards Cory Bernardi's Conservatives? If he persists with this agenda, he will lose Bennelong and the next election. And Barbara Abell from Ringwood North in Melbourne. I'm glad you faced the music, Sam. No one wanted you to play it again. 18 minutes to 7 o'clock, 18 to 6 in Queensland, and the end of an era in Australian business. With the news overnight, Westfield will sell to a European company. Now, Westfield Corporation has agreed to a, cop this, $32.7 billion Australian dollar takeover from a Paris property giant that will end the Lowy family's control of the shopping centre conglomerate, but also spread the Westfield brand across Europe. Unibail Rodamco is the largest commercial landlord in Europe, with interests in shopping centres, offices and exhibition centres. It'll pay a combination of cash and shares for control of Westfield at a value representing a premium of 17.8% on the most recent trading value of Westfield securities. Westfield was established in Sydney's West, listed in 1960, before growing rapidly under the control of Frank Lowy, who was chief executive for no less than 50 years before handing over to his sons. Westfield is one of Australia's most successful brands, so good luck to the Lowys. You know, given what they started with, they deserve everything they can get out of the deal. It's a great Australian rags to riches story. Now, a Bangladeshi man accused of setting off a pipe bomb in a crowded Manhattan commuter hub. He's been charged with terrorism as investigators in his home country question his wife. Now, 27-year-old Akayed Ullah was charged with criminal possession of a weapon, supporting an act of terrorism, and making a terroristic threat. That's a word in New York, terroristic threat under New York state law. Now, US officials say investigators in Bangladesh are questioning Ullah's wife. They didn't provide details on the questioning, but said the couple have a 6-month-old baby boy. New York police say Ullah set off a pipe bomb in an underground corridor of the subway system, injuring himself and 3 others. US officials said it appeared to be a rare, if not unprecedented, attempt at suicide bombing on US soil. Ullah survived with burns and lacerations. 3 bystanders sustained minor injuries. So lucky. Ullah lived with his mother, sister and 2 brothers in Brooklyn and was a green card holder. The ugly face of terrorism rears its ugly head yet again, now still overseas. And the jailed South African Paralympian Oscar Pistorius has reportedly sustained minor injuries in a fight with another inmate in prison. Reports suggest Pistorius had an altercation over the use of a public phone in the special care unit. Pistorius had been taken for a medical checkup after the dispute and was found only to have suffered a bruise. The South African sprinter known as the Blade Runner maintains he believed his girlfriend Reeva Steenkamp was an intruder when he shot her through the bathroom door. He is serving a 13-year sentence. 16 minutes to news time. Now, what on earth do you make of this? A Western Queensland mayor has claimed authorities are too afraid of being accused of creating a new stolen generation that they won't remove children from drug-dependent families. Paru Shire Mayor Lindsay Godfrey said children were too often taken from their parents and put in the care of another family with the same drug or alcohol issues. Nearly 44% of all children placed into protection last year had parents taking some form of methamphetamine, such as ice. 44%. Mr. Godfrey has requested radical measures to get inside the cycle of drug use that has plagued his city of Cunnamulla. This is 750 k's west of Brisbane. He wants to put every member of the community on a health care plan with regular medical and cognitive checkups. Mr. Godfrey said there were Indigenous members of his community dying at the age of 40 from drug and alcohol-related diseases. He means well, but you can tell what the do-gooders will be doing with Mr. Godfrey, barking him down and telling him to get lost. It's their job. Well, their job has turned out to be ineffective. And when you've got 44% of all children placed into protection because of ice or methamphetamine, there are serious measures that need to be taken. Queensland Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk has some work to do to bring the state up to scratch. A new report has found Queensland is hopelessly underfunding its roads and public transport networks with a backlog of $9 billion of urgently needed upgrades. Now, the scathing assessment comes from the Queensland Audit Office, which says trip times will increase by 20 minutes over the next decade. Now, some of you may be sitting in traffic in Brisbane right now. Think about another 20 minutes added to your journey. It'd start to get to the gridlock situation that exists in places, in particular in Sydney. There are $9 billion worth of road projects that need to begin immediately to avoid more gridlock. Anastasia Palaszczuk, get on with it. And New South Wales Police will launch Operation Safe Arrival today. It's the annual Christmas New Year road safety enforcement campaign. The theme this year, don't let safety take a back seat. The operation comes following an alarming increase in passenger deaths on New South Wales roads in 2017. Operation Safe Arrival begins just after midnight tomorrow and concludes at midnight Monday, January 1st. There will be police everywhere, targeting drivers for dangerous behaviour, including speeding, drink and drug driving, mobile phone use and not wearing seatbelts. Take the tip, slow down, drive to the conditions and arrive alive. You may have seen the pickies already, but I see Crown Prince Frederik and Princess Mary of Denmark are in Sydney. They were spotted yesterday on Sydney Harbour. Of course you would go to Sydney Harbour on a glorious day like yesterday. They were taking turns on the wheel of famed Super Maxi Wild Oats 11. They're here with their 4 children for Christmas. Mary and Frederik met in Sydney, as you may remember, during the Sydney Olympics. At the bar in a pub in the CBD. The family's expected to spend Christmas in Mary's home state of Tasmania. I wonder whether Frederik, who loves his sailing, will try and get part of the Sydney to Hobart yacht race. He's always wanted to do it. Come on, Mary, give him some time away. Good luck to both of them. Now, are you paying for your kids' prepaid mobile credit? Prepaying is a smart way to go. But not if you're putting up with 28 days of prepaid or a telco that cuts you short. Switch to 35 days expiry on Vodafone's prepaid $40 and over combos and get an incredible 35 gig of bonus data over 10 recharges. That's an extra 3.5 gig per recharge and 35 days to use it. The future is exciting with Vodafone. Are you ready? Recharge and opt-in by January 31, 2018. Next 9 recharges by November 11, 2018. Terms and conditions apply. 11.5 to 7, 11.5 to 6 in Queensland. This is Chris Smith for Alan Jones.
And now on the Alan Jones Breakfast Show, the Stock Market Report.
Welcome to Wednesday, Hump Day, December 13, 2017. The Dow Jones is trading 141 points higher. The Nasdaq is trading 5 points lower. The Standard & Poor's is trading 9 points higher. The Nikkei has closed 72.6 points lower. The Shanghai Composite has closed 53.5 points lower. The FTSE has closed 47 points higher. Oil is $75.56 Australian a barrel, and that's $57.08 US. 1 Australian dollar is worth 75.54 US cents, and gold is trading at $1,242 US dollars, 50 cents an ounce.
On the Alan Jones Breakfast Show, national weather.
Well, the weather is news today because the heat wave has struck in certain parts of Australia and now getting to the east coast. Mainly dry and hot around the country. A shower or two and a possible storm in Darwin. Hot and partly cloudy in Hobart. Mostly sunny in Perth and Canberra. Perth went through a heat wave yesterday. A late cool change for Melbourne, but that's after a top of 37 in Melbourne. And a late change in Adelaide after 38 degrees. So both of those centres will boil. A mostly sunny day for Brisbane, top of 30 degrees, continuing mostly sunny conditions through to Sunday. A hot, sunny and windy day for Sydney today. We're talking gusts of up to 40 kilometres an hour in the middle of the day. A top of 30 degrees in the city, 39 in the west. Worst tomorrow, 35 in the city, 41 in the west. London, heavy rain and 8 degrees.
The UK Report, thanks to Peters of Kensington. Open 7 days at Barangaroo, Birkenhead Point in Kensington. Or shop online at petersofkensington.com.au.
G'day there, Adam Gilchrist.
Hello, morning, Chris.
Now, social media curbs. Tell us about this.
It's that thing we have around the world, and you have the same as us, how to curb illegal or extremist material on the internet. And certainly Google and Facebook and Twitter and others have told us they're taking action, and I believe they have taken action. But a committee of MPs here is suggesting something more hardline. The Committee on Standards in Public Life is urging our Prime Minister to act. Their report, which comes out tomorrow actually, suggests social media companies should be treated as if everything on their sites is published, which would mean therefore prosecution, fines, jail if they don't remove racist, extremist, terrorist, exploitative, child sex abuse content, that sort of stuff. So in short, the MPs from various political persuasions believe that internet companies should be viewed as publishing companies and not platforms. They've always negated responsibility by saying, it's all the people putting stuff on. And what these MPs are saying is make the internet companies responsible, and boy, would they smarten up their act.
Yeah, well, someone has to take responsibility because social media is such a clicked-on platform of the media at the moment, and it has influence, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Exactly. We know that. Intelligence services are monitoring it all the time, looking for extremist material. That's just one aspect of it.
Yeah.
Of course, from an internet company point of view, they have millions, if not billions, of things to monitor. But do you know what? That's their problem, isn't it? They're making a lot of money out of it.
Too right. I'm with you. Thank you. And horrific hit-and-run death, Adam.
Yeah, I can scarcely believe I'm telling you. And again, it's a story about responsibility. But a woman has been killed after being run over at a pedestrian crossing in Tulsa, in South London, not very far from where I grew up, actually. But the victim, who's aged 29, was hit by a lorry, then hit again by another lorry, and then hit by 2 cars, and not one of the drivers stopped.
No.
It looks like it was entirely accidental. It's a notorious corner, very bad for crossing the road. But let alone anyone actually get out and help her, they didn't stop. Police appealing for witnesses, and they're also, frankly, appealing to the consciences of the 4 drivers involved. They must surely have known they hit her. How would you not know you'd hit a woman? Especially the sort of 3 who came along afterwards. Their non-reaction, I have to say, has triggered huge shock, and quite right too. We don't want that sort of stuff, do we?
Inexplicable, eh? What a terrible outcome that is. And abandoned dogs, Adam.
Well, it's that time of year, isn't it, Chris? The campaign slogan, "A dog is for life, not just for Christmas," and the charity that invented that slogan, the Dogs Trust, says, well, despite 39 years of hard campaigning with that slogan, they still have issues about abandoned and lost and unwanted dogs at Christmas. In fact, last year, after Christmas, there were 1,000 they took in, and that's just one charity. There are others that do it as well. Reasons given, though, are, I have to say, quite amusing. I mean, obviously the core of this is not very amusing, but the reasons given by people why they didn't want their pets. The dog was too big, too friendly, stared too much, panted a lot. The dog shook its tail at strangers, didn't like fancy dress, which kind of makes the mind boggle what they were doing with their dog. And how about this one? We gave back the dog because it didn't match the sofa and curtains. So-called bona fide excuses. Isn't that terrible?
Yes, some idiotic interior designer there with the last one. Thank you, Adam.
And now, a sports update.
2 minutes to news time. James Willis is with us, and it'll be on for young and old in Brisbane tonight.
Yeah, Jeff Horn defending his WBO World Welterweight title live on Foxtel's main event. For our Brisbane listeners, there's a couple of tickets still available, so if you want to go along to the Brisbane Convention and Exhibition
Two
Centre,
tickets, only two tickets.
Might be a
listeners.
handful, maybe a few more. Horn remains undefeated as a professional from 18 fights. His opponent is a very tough Brit called Gary Corcoran, who's only lost once. Both fighters will go on the attack. If it goes 12 rounds, it will be brutal. And if Horn wins, crucially, he's set for a massive 2018 where he'll take on the biggest names in the world for his weight division, including unbeaten American Terence Crawford in Las Vegas on the world stage, worth millions and millions of dollars. So he wins, and then the next step is ahead of him. So good luck to Jeff Horn tonight.
The WACA, the final test at the WACA, that is awfully sad when you think about the great challenges that took Australia to victory at the WACA over the years.
And we talked about some of those great moments. Look, if you get a chance today, go onto YouTube and look at the clip of Curtly Ambrose bowling to Australia in 1993 at the WACA.
No.
He took 7 wickets for just 1 run.
Why would we want to do that?
In 32 balls.
It hurt.
It's an amazing spell of fast bowling. Doug Walters hit a 6 to bring up a century in a session before stumps against England on the last ball in December 1974. And then, of course, we were talking earlier, Dennis Lilly had some great moments there.
Yeah.
He was almost involved in a brawl with a Pakistani player at one stage, and he also threw his aluminium bat off the ground after the umpire said he couldn't use it.
Yeah.
But that's on tomorrow, starting the third test.
And this new stadium, have you seen the new stadium?
Fantastic.
Is it?
$1 billion. It'll host all the AFL, West Coast, Fremantle. It's going to be fantastic. They'd hope to have it ready for this summer, be ready for next summer, but in the meantime, one final game at the WACA.
Brilliant. Thank you, mate. Much appreciated. Sport with James Willis. 8.5 minutes after 7 o'clock. Good to have your company this morning. Chris Smith for Alan Jones. And for Sydney today, we've got a windy, sunny and hot day leading up to tomorrow's scorcher, a top of 30 and 39 in the west. And for Brisbane, though, much more manageable, 30 degrees, mostly sunny day. Well, I think it's fair to say you won't often hear on this radio station good news and Australia's Islamic community in the same sentence. A different story yesterday, and this is big news in my view. Muslims have been told there is no religious reason why they should not stand for a judge in court or why women should not uncover their faces. Now, the guidance from the Australian National Imams Council comes after a string of Muslim defendants have refused to stand for judges in court, and you remember them well. There was Matia El-Zahad, the wife of a convicted Islamic State recruiter, Hamdi Al-Qudsi. Her lawyers told the court she wouldn't stand for anyone except Allah. There was Milad bin Ahmed Shah Al-Ahmadzai, jailed for 18 years for a shooting in a Western Sydney gay nightclub. He refused to stand too. Then there was the Islamic State-inspired Suleiman Khalid and Mohammed Al-Mui, who planned to attack Australian federal police officers. Well, Muslim leaders have now said there is no reason in the teachings of Islam why any of these defendants should not stand in court. The official advice provided by the Australian National Imams Council says standing up for the magistrate or judge is a sign of respect to the court. This sign of respect is also reflected in the teaching of Islam. What's called the explanatory note on the judicial process and participation of Muslims said the teachings of the Prophet told people to stand up for your chief. The note said, it was acceptable to follow custom and lower or bow the head to the magistrate or judge when entering or leaving the courtroom. Hooray for that. Now let's jail any further disrespect in our courts. No questions asked. The Imams also said, it is not contrary to Sharia law for a woman to uncover her face when she is giving testimony in court. It said, magistrates and judges could also look at a woman's face to know or identify who she is. Let's hope a copy of the guidelines is printed and available in every court and mosque in the land. That noise you hear is a collective sigh of relief from the community at large. Hopefully, finally, we're getting somewhere. 7:15, 6:15 in Queensland. Did you hear that news story about the massive penguin? Scientists have discovered a fossil in New Zealand which is likely to belong to a giant penguin. It suggested the bird is between 50 and 60 million years old and existed soon after the demise of the dinosaurs. Examination of the fossil suggests the bird weighed nearly 100 kilograms and was nearly 177 centimetres tall, the size of a male human being, much bigger than the current largest penguin in the world, which is called the emperor, which grows to about 1.2 metres, and it's only 40 k's, the largest in the world. They're called kumimanu, which is the Maori word for bird, and we had that duckosaur, built like a swan with large claws and sharp beak, discovered only recently as well. These birds were mean dudes, weren't they? Nasty. I'll take our puny penguins any day. Well, we're just 12 days away from Christmas, but according to brand new research from the Salvation Army, there's been a massive increase in the number of Australian children who'll receive no presents this year. The researchers found 1.6 million Australians with children under the age of 10 won't be providing a Christmas present for them this year. That is a staggering increase of more than 1 million on last year's figures. The research commissioned as part of the Salvo's Christmas appeal has also found a massive 735,000 Australians know 10 or more families who'll experience financial hardship or poverty this Christmas. 69% of those surveyed, which equates to 13.2 million, say Australians are losing the true meaning of Christmas. 8 million say the general public isn't doing enough to help Australians in need at Christmas. 13.1 million Australians know people who will be lonely this Christmas, and 9.5 million Australians, over half of those surveyed, have revealed that paying for Christmas is getting harder and harder every year. Now, to help, the Salvos want you to go to the website salvos.org.au or call this number 13 72 58. That's 13 72 58 or 13 Salvos. And to put all of that in context over Christmas, the Salvos will help more than 300,000 people. They'll serve more than 10,000 meals and distribute, can you believe it, more than 500,000 gifts and toys. Lee Cleave is a spokesman for the Salvos, and she's on the line right now. Lee, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
Gee, the research paints a very bleak old picture, doesn't it?
It's quite confronting, really, isn't it, to hear this? I mean, last year when we were aware of the children that weren't going to get a gift, but to see the significant increase this year is quite confronting. And for us, it was really, is this really true? Can this be true? And even Roy Morgan, who did the research, were quite surprised at it. But it does reflect what our people on the front line are seeing. People living on marginal incomes and tight budgets. They're already tightly managing how they spend their money, but power prices escalating, housing affordability getting worse, and we know that many Australians are struggling to get enough paid work. So it is getting harder and harder for people to keep their heads above water. And we know that things like some bad experiences and misfortune, they can culminate at Christmas time.
Yeah, very, very true. But what is gobsmacking for me is this increase. 1.6 million Australians with children under the age of 10 won't be providing presents this year. That's a 1 million increase on last year's figure. What a massive jump.
A massive jump, 3 times the jump. And as we said, it's can this be so? And it is surprising for all of us when we look at it as statistics. And the statistics are confronting, I agree. But I think sometimes when we look behind, what are the stories behind these statistics? what are the stories that these people and these families are in. The figures are big, but really when you put it out and imagine those families and the difficulty they must be in at this time when there's so much celebration going on, and they are really, really struggling.
And because they're disconnected from a feast like Christmas, it makes it understandable to hear that nearly 70% of people, more than 13 million, say Australians are losing the true meaning of Christmas.
Yes, we can get
There's
caught up with
connect between the two, isn't there?
There it seems to be a connection, doesn't it? Because we want to say with Christmas it's about love, it's about giving, it's about hope, it's about being together. But maybe in all the busyness and all the activity and the feeling of the bright lights around it all, we're losing the sense of what it is that we just want to be with people and spend time with people that we love at Christmas time.
And, you know, a gift should be just that, as the word says. Here is a gift. But over the decades, you know, some families have been, I guess, self-compelled to give more than they really should have to their family members, in particular their children.
Yeah, there are big expectations put on us in what we have to give. And we know when you receive a gift, it's the pleasure really when that person gives it to you and the excitement in their eyes. That's what it's really about, isn't it? Because we have so much, many of us. We don't need all the things that we have. But we do put these big expectations on ourselves. We even laugh about it ourselves. Yeah. People that we might have the means to buy the gifts, we laugh about it and things like this. But really we are building up this big sense of expectation.
8 million people say the general public isn't doing enough to help Australians in need at Christmas. In your experience, how much help are people prepared to give?
We find in the Salvos that people are really generous. And we know from some of our long-term supporters at times life may be a bit tough, but they still continue to give and they give their time. But that's why I think sometimes because life is busy, that's why the Salvos and other people like us, we need to be out there and reminding people and giving people the opportunity to give, because we can be very focused on our own life and the busyness of life. That's why we need to be out there encouraging people. The Salvos will always be the advocate for those people that are struggling, and we need to share their stories and ask people for their support.
Yeah, and, you know, putting presents and financial situations aside for a second, you've found 13.1 million Australians, no other people, who'll be lonely this Christmas. And that's not hard to solve, is it?
No. We would encourage people just to look around your local community. We, the Salvos, we will have lunches and we will connect and build community. But we would encourage people, we can't be everywhere, to just look around your community, in your street, in your neighbourhood, and just see those people that might be lonely or struggling this Christmas. Yeah. Sometimes it's just taking the time to look up and look out and look at what's around you and see where there's an opportunity for you to show some kindness and give some hope to someone that might be feeling quite isolated and lonely.
Yeah, Lee, I did an interview on Monday with the Red Cross CEO. They've found as many as 1 in 4 of us, that's 5.6 million people, suffer from loneliness. And I guess we build these big cities with lots of people and we feel more isolated because of that.
Indeed. We're struggling to keep up and deal with this, and we feel the face of loneliness really is changing, and it affects people from all walks of life. We have so many ways to be connected, but in some ways we're getting lonelier.
Mm. Okay, the demand for your services, does it grow because of all these facts and figures we've just spoken about? I guess it does.
It does. Christmas is usually the busiest time of the year for us, and so increasingly every year there are demands on our services, and so that's why we go out with the Christmas appeal and we encourage those people that can to have the ability to give to the Christmas appeal, because we say just for $29 will help us put some food on the table and a present or a gift under a tree for a family who's really doing it tough.
Just $29?
Just $29.
And you can do that on the website or at that phone number I said before?
On the website, salvos.org.au, and when you go on there, you can see the difference. There's stories that will show you the difference your gift will make. And you can ring us, 13-SALVOS, 137258.
People should do this, $29. The other thing that just crossed my mind, though, Lee, is because of the demand and because you're trying to keep up, there would be people who won't be helped by you. You'd have to somehow know that they exist out there, right?
Yeah, we do need to know. So if people are struggling, they can go to that same website, salvos.org.au, and that same phone number, and let us know. We wouldn't want people to sit there and we don't know everyone, as you say, that's needing help, but we would encourage people to reach out to us, to the Salvos, or to any other organisation in their community. There are people out there that do want to help, do want to connect, and do want to give people hope.
Yeah, and don't be too proud to do that. Fabulous to speak with you. Have a great Christmas. You do some incredible work, and for $29, a piddling amount, we can make such a difference via the Salvation Army. Thank you, Lee.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, Lee Cleve from the Salvation Army. Let me repeat that number again, 137258, not only for you putting your hand up and not being too proud to do so, but also to give. What a great thing. If you've never done it before, what a great thing. How wonderful would it make you feel to ring that number at some stage today and give a piddling $29, which puts a present under a tree and puts some food on the table at Christmas time for a family that won't have it. They won't have it. The Salvation Army, salvos.org.au. 4 minutes away from news.
Chris Smith, right across Australia.
Well, can we wrap up the national weather outlook in one word? We can. Hot. Perth is the coolest place to be today, would you believe? Top of 27. Every other capital city will be up over 30 degrees. Melbourne and Adelaide, it'll be closer to 40. For my Brisbane listeners, a mostly sunny day, a top of 30 and similar conditions through until next week. You've got it terrific. In Sydney, hot and windy today, but the worst on the way tomorrow. As a result, there's a very high fire danger for the Metropolitan, Greater Hunter and Central and Southern Ranges in New South Wales. David Brown is the 7 News meteorologist, and he's on the line right now. These are big weather news days for you, David Brown.
Oh, it certainly is, Chris. Yeah, the heat is definitely on. In fact, the Bureau's calling this a low-intensity heat wave. For folk in the western parts of Sydney, high 30s expected today. As you mentioned earlier, it'll all come to a head tomorrow. We're expecting low 40s across most of western Sydney tomorrow. In fact, the coolest place will, in fact, be on the beach, or better still, in the water, Chris.
Yeah. Where does all this come from?
Well, what's happening? We've got this trough that's crossing the Great Australian Bight at the moment. That's dragging very hot and dry air from central Australia into western New South Wales today, and that heat will eventually make its way into the Sydney Basin tomorrow. It's just hot, dry west-northwesterly winds, Chris, typical for this time of year.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's the intensity of the heat, Chris. Temperatures well above normal. That's why the Bureau's issued this low-intensity heat wave warning.
And so, because it's early in December, will this be a dry heat or a humidity heat?
It'll be a dry heat. There's no doubt about that, Chris. Yeah, dry heat today and tomorrow. But as there is a weak cool change on the way. That will move through on Friday. It will bring relief from the heat, but it'll also bring that humidity, Chris. So we'll see the humidity build, so it will feel rather uncomfortable, especially Friday afternoon. Might get a few showers, and there is a chance of a storm, and that sort of high humidity weather lingering across the weekend as well. Unsettled conditions. High 30s building in our west during Sunday. Again, a few showers and maybe a storm, and then more intense heat, Chris, sweeping into Sydney during the early part of next week, especially on Tuesday and Wednesday, but another change moving through probably Wednesday night into Thursday with some rain to follow, Chris.
Okay, so that's important to note. The second wave of heat coming through on Tuesday and then a cooler end to the day on Wednesday. Just looking at the forecast for Brisbane, that's about as normal as I could find across the country.
It's what you call perfect Brisbane weather. In fact, magical conditions today, around 30 degrees. In fact, remaining fine and sunny. Maximum temperatures 30, 31 degrees for the next week, Chris.
Yeah, exactly. So just to include tomorrow, there are places that will get to 45, 44. Is that possible in Sydney?
Well, look, I suspect places like Richmond, maybe even Blacktown, 42, 43 degrees tomorrow. Penrith could also crack possibly 43 degrees. That will be the extent of the heat, I guess. Yeah. And then relief coming through on Friday. But I think we might see similar temperatures unfold during the early part of next week.
Okay. Appreciate all of that. Thank you, mate.
You're welcome, Chris, and Merry Christmas to you.
And Merry Christmas to you too, David. Thank you very much, and to you and the family there. 7 News meteorologist David Brown. So there you go. In those notoriously hot parts or pockets of Sydney, like the Richmonds and the Blacktowns, you're going to get up over the 41-degree forecast. So prepare for it. And for those, as I mentioned earlier in the program, who don't like to use air conditioning or fans, on a day like that, it's time to turn them on.
Chris Smith filling in for Alan Jones. Thanks to Vodafone. Want a no locking contract? See vodafone.com.au/plans. T's and C's apply.
20 to 8, 20 to 7 in Queensland. Happy birthday if you've got one today, this 13th day of December. You're sharing it with some very, very big world names. Dick Van Dyke is 92 years of age. I grew up with Dick Van Dyke and the Dick Van Dyke Show. And Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, remember that? 1968. Mary Poppins, 1964. But he's 92, Dick Van Dyke. Christopher Plummer, the Canadian actor. The Sound of Music, Christopher Plummer, 88 today. Taylor Swift, 28. Anthony Kalia, 35 years of age, the Australian singer. So happy birthday and enjoy it. A Marist brother has been charged with child sex offences dating back half a century. The 77-year-old is facing 9 counts of inciting an act of indecency and 4 counts of indecent assault. It's alleged the offences took place at a Sydney boarding school at Hunters Hill on the lower North Shore. And I think we all know which school that is. It's taken a long time for the brother to face the courts. There are only allegations at this stage, and we need to be mindful of that. His alleged victims have been living with their stories, though, for a long, long time. And the man who found infamy as the trainer in the Fine Cotton affair has passed away. Hayden Haitana was 72 years of age. He'd survived 2 strokes, but was admitted to hospital, was gravely ill earlier this month. Haitana was warned off all racecourses for life for his role in the 1984 scandal at Eagle Farm. The horse, you may remember, Fine Cotton started at odds of $34. Secretly swapped for the much better Bold Personality without the knowledge of racing officials. Bold Personality's legs were partly painted white to resemble the horse it replaced, Fine Cotton. Those who were in on the swap backed the horse from $34 into $4.50. Fine Cotton won the race, but was disqualified after stewards discovered white paint dripping from the horse's feet during a post-wash bath. Gotcha. The trainer, Hayden Haitana, was jailed and warned off racetracks for almost 30 years, but was allowed back after pleading with Racing Queensland in 2013. Took a long time. The affair also saw Bill and Robbie Waterhouse, father and son, banned from racing for 14 years. But the head trainer of the horse involved, Hayden Haitana, has passed away at the age of 72. A very interesting point in relation to the Lowy family, who are selling out of Westfield, as you've heard this morning, for $32.7 billion. Hard to get your head across it. $32.7 billion. The major shopping mall chain will be snapped up by French property giant Unibail Rodamco. But Lowy's son Peter made a startling admission during yesterday's announcement. And any of you who've had Westfield shares over the years, and I know some people who have, you'll appreciate this. This bloke said, if someone had invested just $1,000 with my dad in Westfield in 1960, at the end of this transaction, it will be worth $440 million. That's a pretty handy return, isn't it? Unbelievable. A very funny line from Jennifer Coote from Woonona in the Herald's column 8 this morning. She says, after all these years, I've finally figured out why there were 3 wise men that visited the manger at Christmas. One to hold the ladder, and the other 2 to untangle the damn Christmas lights. 1,000% correct, isn't it? Untangling the Christmas lights. Well, I gave it to Morgan to do this year. I said, Morgan, can you untangle these lights? And he just looked at me and said, you like fun. 16 to 8 o'clock, 16 to 7 in Queensland. I took a call from Steph on the open line yesterday. You may have heard it. She's a cleaner contracted to the New South Wales state government, and this is a ridiculous story. Ridiculous because it exposes the buffoonery of government. 7,000 school cleaners will need to reapply for their jobs for the first time in 24 years. The New South Wales Department of Finance Services and Innovation, fancy calling themselves Innovation, has notified United Voice, the union representing the cleaners, that employment guarantees in place since 1994 will not be extended in the new contracts from 2018. Now, get your head across this. Most work 2 shifts a day, from 4:30am to 9am and 2pm to 6pm. They take home less than $19 an hour. For the first time in 24 years, every cleaner will have to reapply for their job, with many facing an anxious wait to see if they'll have a job come July next year. Would you clean public school toilets? Probably not. The people that do work these insane shifts for insane money, and they're now being treated like rubbish. United Voice State Secretary Mel Gatfield is on the line right now. Mel, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Chris.
No one would want to do these jobs, would they, if they had a choice?
No, when you see what cleaners have to deal with on a daily basis, they work really hard. They are working at times when no one else is around, and I think that's the problem here. People don't realise the hard work that they're doing, and this is a really heartless decision by this government.
Before we talk about the decision, I said 2 certain shifts, so for 4:30am. Now, let me just presume that these people aren't living at Vaucluse in Sydney, so they're travelling a hell of a long time to get where they've got to be at 4:30am or where they've got to be at 2pm. They work in a lonely environment. They're working for $19 an hour. It's tough.
It is tough, and you're exactly right. You have to start at 4:30. Think about it. At the moment, they're cleaning in really hot temperatures, but in the middle of winter, it's dark, and they have to open the school gates. They have to get in there and start cleaning, often cleaning on their own. And then they come back in after, it's a bit later, the second shift, after the children have left, and they are there again. Travelling right across Sydney, as you say, no cleaners are living in Vaucluse or North Sydney or the Northern Beaches, and cleaners have to get up even earlier, and there isn't great public transport at that time.
No, correct. I'm glad you made that point. What is the government's motivation here? Is it penny pinching? Is it just stupidity, or both?
I think it's both. It's definitely penny pinching. The only reason that you would try and cut cleaning jobs on the contract is to save money. There's no other way you can do it.
Will they cut jobs, though?
Well, if they aren't prepared to guarantee cleaning jobs, why do people have to apply for their own job? We think that the government should guarantee these current jobs and the hours that cleaners work. Why do they need to apply for their jobs?
Well, what do you think the motivation is from government, though?
I think they're trying to cut costs. They're trying to make it easier to subcontract out cleaning, and they're trying to cut costs and cut cleaning hours on the schools.
I read something yesterday where more than 25,000 state public servants are working from home.
Wow.
Some have got it pretty comfy at the moment, and these people are certainly not in that category. You know, fat cats are the fastest growing category in the public service, numbers surging nearly 15% in the past 4 years. But it's one rule for the cleaners and another for the rule makers, right?
That's what it feels like for cleaners. They're waiting now to find out what's going to happen. Do they have to apply for a job? Are they going to have a job next year? What is going to happen to them? What's going to happen to their entitlements? I think this government should make a decision before Christmas and give people some certainty.
Yeah. Victor Dominello, the Finance Services and Property Minister, recently met with your union. What did he have to say for himself?
Minister Dominello met with 12 cleaners from right across the state, and I think he was quite surprised by the stories that they told. People told stories about not being able to afford their rent if they get their hours cut, not being able to continue to provide the service to schools. A lot of cleaners have been working in these schools for years. They're part of the community.
Yeah.
They know the children, they know the teachers and the principal, and they go that extra mile. And I think he was quite shocked by those stories.
Okay. I understand that he did make the point that existing employees will be provided with adequate information. Oh, gee, thank you very much. Information about not working as long as I need to. So the new facilities management contract, it's just a fancy word for trying to find out where they can make some money, right?
Yeah, that's it.
New facilities management contract. Give us a break with the gobbledygook.
That's right, Chris.
Yeah. All right. They deserve much better, don't they?
They do.
So where to from now? How do we help this situation?
Well, we're asking people to send a message to Gladys Berejiklian. We're asking you to go online to our www.cleanschools.org and send a message to Gladys that school cleaners deserve better, that they need job security, they need decent hours of work, and we really appreciate your support.
So cleanschools.org?
cleanschools.org.au.
Right, okay.
/Gladys if you want to send an email to the Premier.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get in on this for sure. Thank you very much for your time, Mel.
Thanks, Chris. I really appreciate it.
All right, United Voice State Secretary Mel Gatfield. $19 an hour. Would you clean school toilets? Would you try and get across town at 3 a.m. in the morning to get to somewhere at 4:30 to start your shift? These are living, breathing human beings. And what's the bet? They work harder than you and I do. What's the bet? I bet they do. They get paid nothing. And now the government moves in because, you know, they're not going to put up too much of a fight. They're cleaners. They're probably, most of them, new arrivals to the country, trying to make a start, just as Frank Lowy tried to do in 1960. And they're being treated like rubbish by a government buried in bureaucracy. They deserve better. Anyway, cleanschools.org.au. Watch this space. It's ridiculous, but we will get in on this and we'll make sure that Victor Dominello, who probably has never cleaned a school toilet in his life, understands what his department is doing to these poor people. 131873 is the telephone number. And when I do open the lines, I'd love to hear what you've got to say about this little rort. And it is a rort. Save a bit of money here. So what? You can spend it on other bigger things, etc., stadiums, other things that most of the public are scratching their head about. It's 8 minutes away from news. This is Chris Smith for Alan Jones. 4 minutes away from news to Ross Greenwood in just a second, but I see the Australian newspaper has conducted an interview today with the son of former Prime Minister Harold Holt as we approach, would you believe, the 50th anniversary of his disappearance? On December 17, 1967, Harold Holt was enjoying a weekend away at Portsea, south of Melbourne, when he and 4 companions decided to drive to Point Nepean to watch sailor Alec Rose pass through the Rip in his solo circumnavigation attempt. On their way back, Mr. Holt convinced the group to stop at a remote beach for a swim before lunch. The 59-year-old had been spearfishing at this spot on previous occasions. He knew it well. The conditions were extremely rough, and only Holt was brave enough to swim out. Suddenly he became caught in a strong rip and disappeared from the group's view. Panicking, his friends drove to a nearby Australian Army training facility, raised the alarm, prompting the largest search operation in Australian history. But he was never seen again. A coronial inquest in 2005 returned a verdict of accidental drowning. But of course some have thrown up wild conspiracies, including Holt faking his death, assassination by the CIA, some kind of Chinese submarine that picked him up. His son Sam has recalled how his father was a risk-taker who often swam in strong rips and currents. Sam Holt says the conspiracy theories are absurd, but an extraordinary scenario, the Prime Minister of Australia disappearing without a trace after going for a swim with friends off a remote beach. Quite extraordinary. 'Tis the season to be winning. It's the 12 days of Christmas, and we're giving you the chance to share in over $20,000 worth of prizes. Today's prize, 4 $500 gift vouchers from Domain. And congratulations to the winners today. C.J. Peters from Edgecliff, Sheena Douthey from Upper Mount Gravatt, Michael Benovich from Shell Cove, and Susan Austin from Strathpine. You've each won a $500 Domain gift voucher. If you'd like to share in over $20,000 worth of prizes, simply head to the win page at 2gb.com or 4bc.com.au and tell us why you love Christmas. Today's the 10th day of Christmas thanks to Domain. Get set for summer living with Domain Furniture and Bedding.
On the Alan Jones Breakfast Show, The Business Report with Ross Greenwood.
Ross, I spoke a little earlier about what Frank's son said when this deal was done, and how he said if you invested $1,000 in 1960, you'd have multiple millions by the time this thing is eventually sold to the French property group. It's an amazing story, isn't it?
It's incredible. $440 million from $1,000 invested in 1960. So you think about the compound annual return, 25.6% a year for the past 57 years.
Wow.
I mean, you know, the thing that gets me about this, though, is also Frank Lowy coming here as basically a penniless immigrant post the Second World War, post the War of Independence in Israel that he fought in, links up with John Saunders. And it reminds me that even today, it may be often immigrants that actually see the opportunities in our country that we blithely walk past every day
yes.
and don't recognise. And it's one of these points whereby a fresh pair of eyes, a risk-taking pair of eyes prepared to have a crack in a new country is really what many Australians need to have that vision. I think many young Australians have got it these days. I'm not so certain as we get older whether we have the same appetite for risk. Frank Lowy certainly had it in spades. It's a massive deal.
Yeah, superbly summarised, mate. Fantastic.
The Dow Jones Index up 121 points. The dollar 75.6 US cents.
Thanks, Ross.
Got to go.
10 minutes after 8 o'clock, we'll open the lines to you to have your say today. So much to comment on in about 30 minutes' time. And I'll give away that retro mini digital radio as well to one of our callers. Well, as the school year draws to a close, parents across the nation are attending speech nights and award presentations to be told by principals and year leaders of the efforts of the students. We're told students are doing their best. They're going above and beyond what's expected of them. Students are being praised for their contributions, which is terrific. But what about the teachers and school leadership? Indeed, what about the entire education system? It's failing our children. Literacy and numeracy standards among secondary students have either flatlined or gone backwards in the past decade. The preliminary National Assessment Program Literacy and Numeracy results in August showed small gains across the board in reading and numeracy, but results for writing had dropped since 2011. And now the full NAPLAN report released today shows their reading skills have also failed to advance. There's been improvement at primary school levels, which is great, but stagnation among secondary school students. The report showed girls outdoing boys in numeracy, and Indigenous students and those from other backgrounds making the most progress. New South Wales Minister for Education Simon Birmingham acknowledged there had not been any real progress among secondary students. He's told The Australian today, while there have been pockets of improvement, we're not seeing the sort of consistency we should expect in these results. He said, we know how vital literacy schools are to setting students up for life beyond school, so the flatlining of reading results should act as a wake-up call that some changes are required. And what concerns me most is the New South Wales Government's minimum standards for Year 9 students. It requires students to achieve at least a NAPLAN Band 8 in 3 areas, reading, writing and numeracy, or they'll have to pass an online test in the following years to qualify for their HSC. The students are being told they have to meet minimum standards. Well, it's obvious after reading this year's NAPLAN results, teachers and administrators are not meeting their own minimum standards. It's all very well to praise children for their commitment, but what about the commitment from the teachers, principals and the department? The report card for them should read, needs to do a whole lot better. Coming up to 13 after 8, 13 after 7 in Queensland. Chris Smith for Alan Jones. Well, an Australian man and his Thai wife have been arrested in Thailand in connection with drug smuggling charges dating back to 2015. 34-year-old Australian Luke Cook and his 40-year-old Thai wife, Kenirat Wedchapatak, were arrested at Bangkok Airport on Saturday. Now, police say they were wanted on suspicion of smuggling crystal methamphetamine in 2015. We're also told assets worth 30 million baht, which is 920,000 Australian dollars, belonging to the couple were also seized. A lawyer for the couple said the two denied wrongdoing. Now, there were no details given about the quantity of drugs the pair were suspected of smuggling, but they did say they were believed to have dumped drugs into the sea off the southern eastern province after encountering a patrol boat. Police said officials later found 50.45 kilograms of crystal methamphetamine washed ashore. They are now in a world of trouble. Federal Treasurer Scott Morrison was talking taxes yesterday. I think people's eyes just glaze over when he starts talking taxes, but that could be said for just about every treasurer. He said top rich listers and multinational companies have been stung with a $1.3 billion tax bill over 3 months after a crackdown on unpaid tax by the federal government. He told News Corp 557 wealthy Aussies and 54 multinationals were hit with a mega tax bill after an investigation by the ATO's Tax Avoidance Task Force. He said $647 million was repaid by multinationals and another $740 million by wealthy Australians. Of that figure, about $770 million could be credited to the work of the task force. So it sounds like we're getting somewhere. But of course, wheels of government, well, they turn very, very slowly. We still have a stack of work to do. I see former swimming champion Samantha Riley is embroiled in a $2.34 million lawsuit over the sale of her former Brisbane swimming school. Now, company Sam Riley Promotions is accused of breaching an agreement with Alex Brown. This is the man who bought her business in September 2014. The swim school shut down 4 months after it was purchased for $210,000 plus about $300,000 in debt. The Supreme Court in Brisbane yesterday heard Ms Riley had reneged on an agreement to train the new owner and his staff for the first 6 months of opening. Mr Brown's lawyers told the court he has no significant assets and will go broke if he loses the lawsuit. Justice David Jackson was critical of the claim, saying even if Mr Brown is successful, $2.34 million is an unrealistic amount. It certainly sounds that way. And, of course, as we know, Samantha Riley won bronze in the 100-metre breaststroke at the 1992 and 1996 Olympics and silver in our 4x100-metre medley team in 1996. What a great swimmer she was. Now, I alluded to this yesterday, but one of the officials charged over this Manly salary cap breach is Joe Kelly. Kelly was initially at my club, South Sydney, and then served as Manly's CEO that's between October 2014 and September 2016, before stepping down without notice. Did he know then he was in trouble? I don't know. Kelly has since joined the Roosters in the same role and apparently doing a great job. The NRL has now issued him a breach notice, which could result in him being deregistered from rugby league entirely. Another Manly official hit with a breach notice cannot be named due to legal reasons. The Seagulls are facing a fine of up to $1 million and around $400,000 removed from next year's salary cap because of illegal third-party payments. It's believed 2 former players have turned on the club and provided information as part of the investigation. Look, for those of us who've been following rugby league for a long time, you hear about the brown paper bags over and over again, and certain clubs come up for notice, but, you know, it happens. And it's about time we got to the nub of it, and we outed those who still think it's the way to run a rugby league club. It's not. 17 minutes after 8, 17 after 7 in Queensland. This is Chris Smith for Alan Jones. 21 after the hour. If you're looking for a great holiday read, and I always look for one about this time, get hold of a new book called Operation Playboy. It's by Catherine Bernella, who you'll have heard many times on Alan's program talking about Schapelle Corby. Catherine is Chappelle's biographer and the author of books including Hotel Korobican and Snowing in Bali. Snowing in Bali was the story of the drug trafficking and dealing scene on the island, which Catherine describes as being one of the most important destinations in the global distribution of narcotics. And that's also what Operation Playboy is about. The subtitle is The Explosive True Story of the Surfer Playboys Turned International Drug Lords and the Cops Who Hunt Them Down. Catherine Bernella has joined me in the studio right now. Thank you very much for your time and congratulations on a new book. It's not easy, is it?
Thank you very much. It's taken quite a lot of time and work here.
To Operation Playboy in a second, but firstly to Schapelle Corby. How is she doing?
Yeah, she's doing incredibly well, given the circumstances of 10 years in Korobican and now being home with her family. She's doing well and seems upbeat and just happy to be home and free.
A lot of Australians are following her on social media, aren't they?
Yeah, I think she's got almost 200,000 followers on Instagram now. Yeah.
She looks a lot healthier from what I've seen than what she did back in that jail.
Oh, for sure. I mean, she did 10 years in a cell, often with up to 15 people in a tiny little cell. So now being home free, not having to go to the parole office every week as she did, every month as she did in Bali, she's a lot happier, yes, for sure.
Operation Playboy takes your snowing in Bali one major step further, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Basically, Operation Snowing in Bali was about the Western cocaine bosses in Bali. And when I finished that book, I felt there was more to tell, in terms of, South America and Europe. And also these guys, these playboys are fascinating. And I had an into that world. So, I've spent the last 4 years, going to South America and to Europe and in Bali talking to more of these playboy drug dealers.
The playboy drug dealers you refer to, what nationalities are they?
Mostly Brazilian.
Brazilian.
Because that's where the cocaine comes from, South America. So they're the ones that are sending the mules, which they call horses generally because their guys or girls are usually English speakers. They have, they're well travelled so they can get through airports and they can just sort of go in the tide of normal travellers and use that as a camouflage.
The latest report of the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, they reckon an estimated 250 million people around the world used drugs in 2015, and of them, close to 30 million suffered from drug use disorders, and that an estimated 28 million years of so-called healthy life was lost to drugs. So there's a market out there that needs to be fed, and it's hungry.
It's very, very hungry, and it's a huge business, and these guys have cornered a bit of it, and basically they're users as well. But it's a massive market that's and the whole industry is very pervasive. It's like these guys are sending horses on planes or mules on planes constantly, a constant stream of them. And so every time you sit on an airplane, you really don't know if there's a drug trafficker next to you because these guys and girls just look like normal travellers, but it's...
To use your words, the people you're talking about, the criminals, they associated with all of this, no doubt for the money, but the glamour and the hedonistic whims of their life, it's the thrill of the game as well?
Absolutely. I mean, these guys get into it. A lot of them are extreme sportsmen. They, surf big waves. They hang glide, and they're adrenaline junkies, and they start doing this as mules, and then they become bosses, they become lords, and they have a whole lot of people. They start their little firms and they're sending traffickers, and they're making huge amounts of money, and they basically live for today. They'll just on a whim fly first class across the world. They'll go skiing, surfing in Bali, skiing in Switzerland. They buy the best clothes. They constantly will spend, go out shopping for a day. And one guy said, I shop like Pretty Woman. He goes to Amsterdam and he'll just spend, 10,000 on a bag without thinking about it.
You've just mentioned about what you were told by one of these people, these traffickers. I don't suppose you can look them up in a phone book. How did you make contact with them?
Well, basically, Snowing in Bali, when after I wrote that, these guys were connections through those guys, and they'd read Snowing in Bali and they liked it and they thought it was accurate, and so...
So you gained their trust from previous books?
Absolutely, yeah. Yep.
Right. And you say you write about George, the son of a Brazilian prosecutor and a high school teacher. You describe him as being dressed like a catwalk model, surrounded by gorgeous women, but he started out working for Domino's. How incredible.
Yeah. And he's a drug lord today, and basically he started just doing a couple of runs. He went to Bali with cocaine, he went to Europe with cocaine, and then he started sending other people and started building up a little business.
But hang on, correct me if I'm wrong. Smuggling drugs into Bali can get you executed.
That's right.
They understand that?
The first time he did it, he didn't realise until he was walking through Denpasar airport with a bag of 5 kilos of cocaine, and he saw a sign saying death penalty to drug traffickers. So after that, he just sent other people.
Wow. And of course, a kilogram of cocaine that cost them maybe $5,000, as you write, can be sold here in Australia for up to $250,000. So it's a lotto win, isn't it?
Absolutely. Every trip they do that's successful, they call it a goal. They're converting, say, $5,000 to Europe, it's 30,000 euros. To Bali, it can be $100,000. So it's a massive markup. To Australia, $250,000.
We haven't even touched on the other side of your book, which is the police chief and the police that are just as ruthless in search of these traffickers. It's a must read. Catherine Bonella and it's called Operation Playboy. It's published by Pan Macmillan Australia. Congratulations on it. I'll be just taking this away with me just for the Christmas period. Thank you, Catherine.
My pleasure.
Yeah, get hold of it. Operation Playboy.
The US Report, thanks to Peters of Kensington. Open 7 days at Barangaroo, Birkenhead Point and Kensington. Or shop online at petersofkensington.com.au.
Hi there, Harley.
Hi there, Chris. How's it going?
Very, very well. Negotiations to finalise a tax reform bill.
Well, they tell us that they are on track. This is according to Congressman Kevin Brady. He's the chief tax writer in the House. He said they should be able to finish this week. Of course, the president wants it on his desk by Christmas. That's been his request, his wish list anyway. There are pretty big differences between the tax bills in the House and the Senate. That's what they're trying to do, is iron out those differences. If they do it, it'll be the first major tax reform, actually, since the Reagan years. And maybe it'll happen.
A huge win for Trump, isn't it?
It'll be a huge win for him, and he contends it'll be a huge win for taxpayers in this country. The idea is if people keep more of their money, it'll be a stimulus to the economy, and he thinks it'll be a real big stimulus and produce hundreds of billions of extra dollars every year into the economy, into the into taxes, because we'll be doing more business, not because our taxes are higher, but because we do so much more business. And business grows, the economy grows, then the government makes more money.
Yeah. We spoke about it yesterday. You touched on it yourself, the New York terror attack and questions being asked about the immigration system. He has been charged now.
He has been charged, and a 27-year-old from Bangladesh. And as I sort of thought might happen, we're going to hear a little about the immigration laws. The Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, says this attack, this latest one, shows, as he put it in the starkest terms, failures in the U.S. immigration system. He said both of the men who carried out recent attacks, in this country and in this city, in fact, were here because of a failed immigration policy, and that debate continues to rage and will, I would imagine, for a while yet.
Yeah, and quickly, ice in bed after falling from a plane?
Yeah, not too much fun. The only good part of this story is it was not blue ice. But this was a big chunk of ice, probably out of the galley. Some sort of leak in the galley collected ice on the side of the plane, ultimately too big to stay there, and it broke off and crashed through the roof, made a great big hole in the roof of this couple's home. They were watching television. Otherwise, it would have landed on them in the bed.
Amazing stuff. Harley, thank you very much for that.
Chris Smith filling in for Alan Jones. Thanks to Vodafone. Want a no-locking contract? See vodafone.com.au/plans. T's and C's apply.
20 to 9, 20 to 8 in Queensland. Some breaking news out of Victoria. And this is a statement from Victorian Police. A man has been charged this morning following the disappearance of Avondale Heights woman Karen Rzewski in 2016. You may have been following the Karen Rzewski murder investigation. A 53-year-old Avondale Heights man was arrested at 7:20 this morning by detectives from the Missing Person Squad. He's been charged with one count of murder, will appear before Melbourne Magistrates Court this morning. You'll hear a lot more about this today. Miss Rzewski went missing from her Oakley Drive home on the morning of the 29th of June 2016. Her remains were discovered in the Macedon area in February of 2017. So that's a huge criminal story breaking in Victoria. 53-year-old Avondale Heights man arrested, and you can probably link and join the dots in terms of who they've got. We'll wait, though, until this man appears in court, and we can officially tell you exactly who he is. I mentioned a little earlier this morning about the job of unravelling the Christmas lights, and a really good piece written in column 8 in the Herald today. Well, we're told that Australians will use more than 150,000 kilometres of wrapping paper this Christmas. I've never understood how people spend so much time wrapping it. I know it looks great and you've got to do it and it's Christmas, but it only takes 6 seconds for everyone to rip all the paper off their presents, doesn't it? Just go, and you think to yourself, I spent a lot of time on that. New research for international aid agency Care Australia says we each use an average 8 metres of paper, only to have it ripped off, discarded and destined for bins and landfill. I guess to look at it another way, the 150,000 kilometres is enough to go around the equator almost 4 times, or get you about 4/10 of the way to the moon. Care wants people to consider a more ethical gift. or even a virtual gift, like contributing to the cost of a child's education in a developing nation, to helping provide clean water. I guess we could consider that. And I mentioned when I spoke with Lee from Salvation Army earlier today, $29. See, this is the way to do it, and you'll save on paper at the same time. $29 will put a gift under the tree of a family and put some food on their table on Christmas Day. Now, that is worthwhile doing. And you can do that on the Salvation Army website. I've got that fabulous VQ Retro Mini Digital Radio from Commercial Radio Australia to give away. We'll be doing that between now and 9, 8 o'clock in Queensland. And it's a beauty. It's a beauty. Worth about $129. You should consider buying one of these for someone for Christmas. Stylish, British, designed and engineered. Includes a built-in Bluetooth speaker. And we're giving it away to one of my open line callers between now and the top of the hour. You may wish to talk about Sam Dastyari and the fact that he walks away yesterday, doesn't apologise to Australia, and he refused to be interviewed. He refuses to tell us why he said to Mr. Huang, hey, we better put our phones in your house, leave them there. They may be tapped. We'll stand outside. What was he talking about that he would need to do that, I wonder? 131873. The education system. This time last year, I was telling you about 3 separate reports exposing how crook the system was in Australia and how badly we'd fallen behind in comparison with other nations around the world, Western nations, even developing nations. And now another one comes out today which tells us that secondary students are well behind when it comes to literacy and numeracy. Not good enough. Not good enough. And if it is working, if there are schools that are getting results, find out how the methodology works and adjust that methodology that exists in other schools to the one that works. It's pretty simple. You may have a view, too, on whether Raylene Castle is the right person to run Australian rugby. What do you reckon? She's already defending herself to the media in that press conference she held yesterday afternoon, but maybe we need to reserve judgment to see how it goes in 2018. They've got a lot of coming back from the dead to do, Australian rugby. They really have. And firstly, they've got to get into the grassroots and realise that GPS schools in this country aren't the only nursery for rugby players. That thinking has to go out the window, and that's the first thing she needs to do. And to probably start looking at how we can engender a better style of play, a Jonesy style of play that brings the crowds back to the game. Because the game itself is being played in such a staid way at the moment, I can't look at it. You may have a view on all of that. 131873. Celine, hi there.
Hi, Chris.
Hi there.
I want to wish you a Merry Christmas.
Very, very well.
For the rest of the year and always. And I want to say that we listen to 2GB all the time.
Brilliant.
And I want to say thank God Dastyari is gone because he really wasn't for Australia at all.
Very, very well. Good on you. Happy Christmas to you, Celine.
And your family.
Thank you very much. To yours too. Andrew, hi.
Hi, it's
Hi.
Andrew.
G'day, Andrew.
I was listening to the story about the salvos and people who don't get gifts and had an idea. What about a lot of us get gifts which we don't really need, and at the end of Christmas we end up with all these gifts which would cost somebody a lot of money. What if instead we made a donation to the salvos and then gave the receipt of the gift to somebody else? It's like a proxy gift.
Well, I don't know because I'm not working for them, but I would have thought that would be wonderful. I think that's a great idea. And Andrew, it might be something you should talk to the Salvation Army about. I don't have the number in front of me, but I'll get it for you, Andrew, and I think it's a good thing to suggest, and maybe other people would follow suit. Andrew, stay on the line. I'll put you through and we'll get you that number for Salvation Army because you should talk to them about that idea. Barney, hi.
Yeah, g'day, Chris.
G'day.
Look, in regards to old Shanghai Sam,
yeah,
I think we're asking the wrong questions, and I wonder what the journalists are on about, because I mean we're asking the question, what did he tell the what's his name, who hit you?
Huang, yeah, Huang, Mr. Huang.
Yeah, what we should be asking is, how did he get the information?
If he had information, or is he just a big noter?
I mean, there's one member of the Labor Party that attends, or the opposition that attends ASIO briefings with the government.
Yeah.
Now, have we got Beijing Bill as well?
Yeah. And has he passed information on to his mate who put him in the job?
That's what I think has happened.
Well, he denies it happening. Let's put it straight. He denies it happening, but it wouldn't surprise me, Barney.
Bill told Sam told his mate, and everyone's on to Sam. I think we should be digging for the root problem.
Yeah. Barney, you make a very, very good point, and we should make it quite obvious that Mr. Huang paid a stack of money to have dinner with Bill Shorten at one stage, and you just wonder what was going on at that particular dinner and why he'd pay thousands and thousands of dollars. I think it was something like, what was it, $14,000 or $15,000? Just ridiculous. Thank you, Barney. 131873. There's been a major security breach with secret plans for a new maximum security wing at Parklea Prison stolen and smuggled out by an inmate. Gee, I tell you what, the broom needs to go through Parklea Prison quick smart. The Telegraph reports the blueprints for the privately owned jail were seized from a cell at Silverwater last week. Shadow Corrections Minister Guy Zengari says it's akin to giving an inmate the keys to the front gate. And he's absolutely right, Guy. There have been a string of security breaches in New South Wales prisons, smuggled phones, drugs, drones, weapons, tobacco. When are we going to get serious about security and not come up with excuses each and every time these issues arise? And if it's not bad enough, the crooks get lenient sentences, so they're living the life of Riley, and now a prisoner has been caught with plans for the prison? That is a joke. That goes beyond everything we've heard about Parklea. Heads should roll on that today. It's 10 minutes to news time. Just repeating, a 53-year-old Avondale Heights man was arrested at 7:20 this morning by detectives from the Victorian Missing Persons Squad in relation to the disappearance of Avondale Heights woman Karen Rzewski in 2016. He's been charged with one count of murder and will appear before Melbourne Magistrates Court this morning. And as I say, you can join the dots as to who they have got in their custody. Chris, go right ahead.
Hello, Chris, how are you, mate?
Very well.
Chris, this dual citizenship debacle that we've been going on about for the last few months, the amount of money and time that it's wasted in our parliament.
And will still waste because they've got to go to the High Court.
Yes.
Which you pay for.
We've got to refer people to the High Court because they're dual citizens, and where does their loyalty and where does their allegiance lie? Well, what excuse are we using for a grub like Sam Dastyari, mate?
Yeah.
I mean, this is the amount of wasted time about dual citizens, and yet we allow people like Sam Dastyari into our parliament who is wide-anting this country, and yet what happens to him? He resigns. And why?
No, he hasn't resigned yet.
But he will resign.
He's only given notice of his resignation, so we'll pay him for the rest of the year.
Okay,
and the first and the first few weeks of next year.
Yeah, and he does resign, and who does that benefit? It benefits Bill Shorten and his cronies, because now they're going to have a free shot at putting someone else in the Senate, like I forget.
Christina
Keneally, who's not a voted person. So they're just moving things around to suit themselves, Chris.
Yeah.
You know?
It stinks. Worse than that, consider what Sam Dastyari will do now for the Labor Party in reference to Huang Sheng-mo. All bets are off. The cuffs are off him. He can upgrade his special Beijing office in Huang Sheng-mo's building in Beijing. And so it'll be on for young and old. Now, Chris, I would like to get you the VQ Retro Mini Digital Radio.
Oh, get out.
You got it. For Christmas.
Oh, wow.
Merry Christmas to you.
Thanks so much, mate. Thank you very much.
Stay on the line and we'll get it to you, courtesy of Commercial Radio Australia. Well done.
Thanks.
Worth $129. Ken in Toowoomba. Hi, Ken.
Chris, g'day. How you going?
Good, thank you.
To you. Great listening to you.
Thank you.
Mate, I just thought I might have a answer to your dilemma with your Christmas lights.
Yeah.
I mean, you better get in quick because when they hear it, people all around Australia will be running to their electricians. So if you've got an electrician that you use fairly often, or I imagine in a radio station,
yes,
people running cables around all.
I've got my own electrician. Yes. Good morning, Andrew.
Just ask them for some empty spools, cable spools, and when you finish with your Christmas lights instead of chucking them in a box and you just wind them around.
Spool them up so they're always untangled.
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
It's not, it doesn't fix the problem 100%, but because you'll get, one will get caught under the other, but they won't get tangled. They can't get tangled.
Yeah.
So, I think that might sort that little problem out for you.
Thank you, champion.
No worries.
That's great. That's what I should have done all along. Even if you put them around the cardboard spools from paper towels. You could do that. Oh, this has given me a whole new positivity about Christmas lights. Steve, hi.
Yeah, hey, Chris.
G'day.
You're talking about the education problems.
Yeah.
The problem is that the teachers are directed to teach to an average or a C level. The best teachers teach to an A level and challenge the students.
Yeah.
But the education department frown on that because they believe that it's demeaning to the average or below average student.
I don't know whether what you're saying is consistent across the board. It comes from a teacher, right? But it may not necessarily be across the board. But if it is across the board, Steve, it stinks. And secondly, get rid of the political correctness and the fear of using the word FAIR, which has become a four-letter word in the education system. Make our students smart, make them understand what failure's all about so that they can learn from their mistakes and get with the rest of the smarter students in the class.
And challenge the students, challenge their brains.
Yeah.
That's what teachers are supposed to do.
Yeah, well said, Steve. Good to get your call. Thanks for that. I can tell you that The Age in Melbourne is reporting that Karen Rozewski's husband is indeed the man charged with her murder. And no doubt Ray Hadley will have more on all of that when he comes in after the news. Thank you so much for your company today. We'll do it from very early tomorrow and have a great day. This is Chris Smith for Alan Jones.